total dark night. When Darius thought everything had finally calmed down, the sky suddenly darkened completely. This was not an ordinary night. This was a total dark night. There was only the sound of the wind and that dry, scratchy, rasping noise, like thousands of legs scraping against rock. Darius retreated into a small rock hollow, clutching his improvised spear tight against his chest. Even after enduring countless horrors on Zertal, he still felt something about tonight was off, something that did not belong to the natural order. In the distance, a very low growl resounded. Vra'kor was somewhere out there in the darkness. Darius shifted slightly, holding his breath to listen more clearly. Heavy, powerful footsteps came from one direction. From the opposite side, the ground trembled lightly, as if a stone drum were being tapped repeatedly. A damp, hot, rancid sensation drifted toward him, a smell of slime and decaying flesh arriving even before the sound became clear. Darius realized what it was slower than he should have. Swarmlon. But not the small kind, not the insect-sized ones he had encountered before. Thick legs as large as human fingers tapped on the stone surface, forming an unnatural rhythm. Suddenly, one of them crawled into the tiny circle of light cast by his fire source, and Darius nearly dropped his spear in horror. It was nearly 2 meters long. Its body was brown-black, glossy like hot oil. Its mouth opened into 4 lobes filled with interlocking hook-like teeth. Its small eyes glowed crimson like embers. And worst of all, a red glow ran along its spine, just like an Obrex crystal. Absorbing crystal energy, that was why they had mutated so grotesquely. The massive worm opened its mouth, releasing a sound like crushed pebbles. Then it lunged. Darius backed up, driving the fire stake into the rock, making the flame flare brightly. The Swarmlon reacted instantly. They recoiled as if shocked, retreating faster than they had charged forward. But another one from the right had already closed in, its body sweeping across, nearly tearing open Darius's thigh. He spun, dragging the fire source with him, sweeping it in a wide arc like a blade. Sparks scattered across the ground. The worms screeched. They hated fire, feared it. But there were so many of them, and so large that fear only seemed to make them more frenzied. A sharp, cold roar rang out. Not from the worms. Darius turned and nearly collapsed. Vra'kor emerged from the darkness like a massive block of steel rising out of a black curtain. His optical camouflage faded out, revealing the blood-black Yacha armor, its glowing lines pulsing like molten veins. The eyes of his mask swept across the scene with a chilling precision. The Yacha warrior looked at Darius for only a fraction of a second, then immediately dismissed him. No words, no gesture. Vra'kor turned, activated his wrist blade, and charged straight into the Swarmlon. A spark flew as the blade struck the hard plates of the first worm. The Yacha twisted, drove his blade downward, slicing the creature in half like tearing open a sack of meat. Brown-red fluid sprayed across his mask like an inverted rain. Vra'kor roared, a sound shaped by generations of warriors, the pure sound of dominance. But the Swarmlon were larger and far more numerous than he had expected. They surged from every direction, piling over each other like waves crashing upon a rocky shore. Darius glanced once and his heart tightened. Vra'kor was completely surrounded. The worms latched onto his armor, coiling around his legs, locking down his arms. One of them climbed onto his back, its hooked teeth biting into the armor gap. The smell of burning flesh and creature blood mixed into a nauseating heat. Vra'kor twisted, slammed one worm into the ground, and crushed its head with a single punch. But the rest kept coming, endlessly. Something flared inside Darius's chest. He couldn't tell if it was fear, instinct, or something else. He looked at his fire source, and at Vra'kor, a warrior being strangled under a tide of mutated beasts. Darius gritted his teeth and bolted out of the hollow. He grabbed a wooden stick wrapped in cloth, lit it from the fire source, creating a blazing torch. He swung it hard to the left. The flame burst into a long sheet of fire, making part of the Swarmlon writhe, curl up, and retreat back into the darkness. That tiny gap opened exactly when Vra'kor needed it. The Yacha twisted, pulled a plasma grenade from his belt, activated it, and hurled it in a spinning arc toward the largest worm. The explosion was small but sharp. Blue fire burst out like a cluster of hot blades, tearing apart 3 or 4 creatures at once. Darius kept sweeping the flames to the right, dragging the torch close to the rock floor to form a burning barrier. Vra'kor used the opening, leaping onto a large boulder and crushing one worm beneath his foot. The swarmlon shrieked, retreating. A few fled into the crevices. Some, about the size of dogs, lay charred black by fire and plasma. The world slowed. Darius's breaths layered into thin, shaky strands. The torch scorched his hand. The Yacha stood atop the rock, covered in worm blood and red firelight. Vra'kor lowered his head to look at Darius. A low growl escaped his mask. Not anger, not warning, but a form of acknowledgement. Darius said nothing. He only switched the torch to his numb hand. A strange sensation crept into the moment. On a night without a single glimmer of light, surrounded by deranged creatures and the crushing silence of Zertal, two beings born as prey and hunter now stood on the same ground, breathing the same scorching air, surviving the same nightmare of the total dark night. And the night had only just begun.